Hi everyone, welcome to another episode, and in this episode we will make a few refactors to our application. And I think that's very important also in a real world development, that every time you make a small change to your application, you should not be worried to refactor already existing part. So it's best if it's somehow related to what you are doing, right? So if you are using something like a functionality of the application and you see that it may not have been developed in the best way, or like just with time you see some possibilities to improve how it has been done, I think you should do it. And that's also, I think, a good way of dealing with technical debt, just step by step. So what I currently have in mind is, I think we can change two things. So first off, we have these lines of code which are related to the database. I think we can move them to a separate file so that every time we actually need these, we can just import, or that we can export from the module that we will create, just the client, and then we can just import the client every time we need it. And the second thing is, we'll set up something called a router. And the router will allow us to remove these endpoints here, put them into a separate file, and then we'll just use the router here in our application. And this will allow us, when we will be adding endpoints, also with different paths, this will allow us to somehow logically group them. Okay, so let's start with the database. For the database, what I like to do is I like to, in the main app folder, so in the second app folder, I like to set up a new file, call it, not a folder, but a file, new file, call it db.js. And inside this db.js folder, I will just copy everything that we have here. I'll paste it here and just then say module.exports client. Okay, let's maybe add here it. And let's see if we have here, and now we have the client here many times. For now, I will not import the client here because we will be soon moving this also. But I think what we need to do now is we definitely need to make an import in our tests file. So here, this part, now instead of importing from the app, we need to import from DB. And of course here now we'll be only importing the app from the app file, and here we'll only be importing the client. Okay, so that's good. However, our application still would not work because we are using the client here, and now the client is not defined here. So let's move this also away. And this is a little bit more complex. What we need is we need to set up something called a router. For it, let's first create a new folder. Let's call the folder routes. And here in the routes folder, we will basically store our files that will contain all of our routes, and we'll somehow group them. So first off, let's set up a new file here. Let's call it to-dos maybe, so that it will store all our to-dos routes. And let's cut it from here and let's paste it here. Now, what do we need? We need something called a router. And this router comes from express.router. However, so it tells us that we also need express here. Require express. Okay, and now what we will be doing is, instead of using the app here, every time it will be using a router. Okay, and then this module needs to export the router. Okay, so that's fine. Now we need also to import the client here because we are using it. So this will be, we need to require. And now we need to get out of the routes folder and get to the DB folder. This should work, because we are going one folder up and then to the DB file. Okay, so this should work, and we can see it here, and that it's worked. So if you just mouse over it, you can see basically that we are importing the client class. Okay, so this should work. I believe we have some more dependencies. So definitely we have the UUID that we did not take with us. So let's take it. And here we can see that it's like grayed out. So let's also move it right here, the UUID, and let's go back. Let's see in the app folder if we need anything else. So here is the express, the app, method override. Okay, this is the this is for the app setting. I think we need the paths also there, because here we are using the path, or no, sorry, we are using the paths here. So we'll not taking the paths away. Okay, you have the views, the setting. Okay, that's fine. Now let's save it, and we need to do one more thing. We need to import the router here. So after we have applied all the settings to our application, let's here do a const to this router, and let's do a require. Oops, if I can spell correctly, require. And here I would say we are going to the routes folder and to to-dos. Okay, that's good. And now we will just use this router. So what you do is you say app.use, and then you do a slash. And now here with the slash, we could specify an addition to the path that we would like. So if I did like to-dos here, then what the path would become, if we go back to our routes here, it would become a get on like our home directory, and then slash to-dos, and then this would be the get, right? So this would become the endpoint. So this would be added before the actual endpoint here. And I think it makes sense that we do so, because later on when we start maybe adding some new routes, it will come in handy for us, so that we can just separate it. Okay, so now this should be fine. And what we can see, so we should be finished with the refactor now. So to sum up basically what we did, we have created the routes folder here. We have moved the DB to a separate file. Let's maybe take a short look in our test file if we now don't need to change anything here. And this should be fine. Okay, let's try to run the tests now. And let's run our tests now. So let's say npm run test. And we get an error. What's the error? Cannot find modular route. Okay, this seems here it should be routes, of course. And this is why it's very good to have the tests. Let's try to run them again. And we get an error once again. Client is not defined. Here we are trying still to export the client. That's not the best way to do it. Let's run the test once again. Okay, and this time we get an error on the test. So let's see what went wrong. Okay, everything. So let's go one by one. And where I think the error may be is if we go to our test folder, that here we need to add a to-dos to our routes that we are testing. To-dos slash, and then also here to-dos slash. Okay, that's good. Let's end it. Let's run the test once again. And now we can see that all the tests are passing. Okay, let's just take a short look in our application. So now if we just go to localhost :3000, we will not get anything. But if we go to to-dos, we can see our application. We can add, and now we can see, that's good. That's good that we tried it, because we have changed it in our tests. But what we still need to do is we need to go to our views, to our index.ejs file. And here we need to change the action. We need to add to-dos here. And we also need to add the to-dos right here. So we need to extend the paths where we want to do it. Okay, let's save that. Let's go once again to our application. Let's go to /to-dos, a new to-do. Let's add it. It's still, we cannot get it, because if we go back to our app.js here, or this time we go back to our routes, we need to here change it so that it redirects us to /todos instead of redirecting us to our home route. Okay. Once again, let's go back here. Let's go to /todos and new to-do2. You can see that the previous to-do was added. We were just redirected to a wrong page. Once again, we are redirected to an incorrect. Because we need to restart the application. Okay, npm run start. So let's just go here to to-dos and new to-do 3. Maybe this time it will work. Yes, and it worked. Let's try to delete something. Let's try to set it to done. Let's try to delete. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Let's terminate it. Let's once again try to run our tests. Let's see if everything will work. Everything works. Everything passed. Okay, so as you can see, the automatized test did not cover everything, although they gave us a hint that something may be wrong, and then we just fixed the paths here, and we did not fix them in the index.ejs file. This is why sometimes it makes sense that you just manually go ahead and click on things. However, what we could do still is we could extend our tests by using some different frameworks that allow us to test the web application a little bit better. And what they would be able to do is they would be able to actually open the browser and go ahead and click a few things. But this is still to come in some of the next videos. However, what we can change, and what actually changed here, is if you remember, I said that we want our tests folder structure to be identical to our app folder structure, right? So that here, if we open the test and we open the app, we have the very same thing. However, currently what we have is we only have the app.js file, and in the app file, we do not really have that much things that we can or want to test. Our main logic that we now have to test is in routes and then in todos.js. So let's do the same thing here. In our test folder, let's create a routes folder, and let's move the app folder into the routes folder. Let's move it. Oops, we moved the Docker. We moved the Docker file, and I wanted to move the routes file. Okay, and we wanted to rename it to todos.js. Okay. That should be it. Maybe we need to now think about the imports once again, because currently we all still fine. Okay, let's maybe make sure it's saved. Let's try to run the test once again, and we get errors. And I think we got errors because we need to go to the package.json file here, and we need to add --recursive. So that it does not only look in the main directory, but also looks in the subdirectories. Let's try once again. And now we can see that we get the 6 tests passing once again. Yeah, so that's good. So let's close it here. Let's run npm run start. Let's go to our application. Let's try to remove something. Let's maybe try to add something new. This all works. Okay, that's good. That's very good. And this is our application currently refactored. Let's go back to the main file. This is our application currently refactored, and this refactor will allow us now to do a lot more and a lot easier changes. So it will allow us to add some more logic to our application much easier than what we had before in one file. So this was a little bit shorter of an episode. I know that the previous one was a little bit long, and I think the one before that was also a little bit long. Therefore, this is a short episode. Let's finish it. Let's finish it by making a commit. Multiple files. Let's sync the changes. Oh, maybe before we sync the changes, let's make sure that I'm on a correct branch. Git, let's create a branch for an episode 9. And let's publish the branch. Okay. I would like to thank you all for watching today, and we will see each other in the next episode.